Hello, good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome back and welcome to the 12th episode of our podcast series, where we are bringing four pillars of the education system together: learners, parents, educators, and employers, job creators, policymakers, to redesign, reimagine, recreate the education system. And it's very important to bring all the four pillars together so we can basically create a learner-led education system, which is need of the hour. Before I go ahead and introduce you to our amazing panel today, we'll hold a minute of silence so can we can be in the present moment, and then we can gather ourselves for the next 60 minutes. So thank you. Welcome back. And as you know, as always, we have this wonderful panel today, and we are missing you, Mick. If you are listening us live or you are going to watch the recording, we are missing you. But I am Archana here, and I co-host it with Mick on all the episodes. But today we have Maitri. So welcome, Maitri. And this amazing panel today is like a boys panel today, so we had powerful, like power packed women's panel once, and now we have like all boys today. So welcome everyone. We have today learner Tarun, and Tarun is a fantastic youth. I came across 2 months back, and he is actually schoolhouse.world tutor. And I really admire Sal Khan's work from whenever it started back in 2006. And we have been following. I personally met Sal once in 2015 as well. So I am always excited for what he's building, and this is something which is amazing thing, the schoolhouse.world. Tarun is volunteering there, and the favorite quote he has is being one's best self by nourishing oneself and everyone around you. Yes, I totally agree with you, Tarun, there. He is also mastering core ideas across the science and humanities, and auto dictating his journey in this mystery we call the universe. He also studies philosophy, literature, maths, and history, and look forward to his graduation into knowledge formation and sustainability. Wonderful. Marxism. I think last time I spoke to him, we talked about Marxism, but he put it this way that Marx's great obsession in education is called Marxism. Wonderful. Questions he's currently holding is: what is truth and why it is valuable? Is there a mind outside sentient bodies? How does what you think you become work? Genuine questions, Tarun. And definitely, I think we'd love to explore those questions with you today. Then we have Shikhar Bajaj. I'm looking forward to meet him soon next month when I am in Bay Area. But Shikhar is also technologist, but at the same time having entrepreneurial mindset, and he actually started working on a startup 2 or 3 years back. He is mostly into product management, strategy, leadership, and go to market strategies. His favorite quote is: life is a journey, not a destination. Yes, I think everyone, we have to enjoy our life as a journey, and not be fearful of what destination holds for us. So wonderful. Shikhar comes from Bay Area and successful executive, as we already talked. He is also father of two teen children. His daughter is going to San Diego University, I guess, and his son, we already hosted him, Salaj, I think a few weeks back. but he strongly believes in mentoring youth and young professionals, and he's too much, like very much involved into Boy Scout and everything. And he is also actively supporting them in their future path. The questions he currently is holding is how to ensure my child is prepared for the job market. And sorry for the spelling mistake there, but uh, definitely I think, Shikhar, you are not the one, but I think 99% of the parents are kind of into the mindset where they want to experiment with the education and everything. They are not convinced with the current system, but at the same time they are actually thinking and worried about how do we create them for the livelihood. So very valid and very well questions you are holding. Then we have Vijay Shah with us today, and Vijay is my favorite youngster from like many years. He is also my divine brother. I know him since last 20 years or more than that. While he was growing up, but I always was amused with his honesty and like the kind of very like reducing the gap between thoughts, words, and actions. That's what he has been doing in his life. He is a co-founder and director at and lead Socratic Guide at the Humanist Academy, which is this academy is based on the Acton Academy, which is kind of very famous in US. I think they have been trying to create a learner-led education environment for many years here in US. And Vijay always wanted to be in education. He had different like opportunities, what we call like bigger from our mindset, conventional mindset, but he chose to be on this route, and I'm so happy for him. He holds two master's degrees in education and also philosophy, and he founded Humanist Academy, which stands at the forefront of an educational revolution sweeping across the globe. Yes, I know many things about the Acton. Using Socratic guidance, which I need to know more about, Vijay, what is Socratic guidance, but Montessori philosophy and self-paced curriculum, project-based and hands-on learnings, and strong personal relationships. Their students learn at their own pace, discover passion, build community, develop human values, find their calling, and change the world. And questions he currently is holding is: are we truly tapping into the infinite potential in children? How do we create a learning environment that brings out their genius? Yes, Vijay, I think it's a lot of work to be done in this area, but I'm so much hopeful that we all of us here together, we can co-create that new path for learners and for ourselves as well. So welcome. And finally, we have Anil Patelji, and Anil ji is also one of our favorite. He is also from US, but he moved back to Bharat, and he has been doing some amazing work in local community there with the natural farmers, with the technology team. He founded Hotwax Commerce, which is basically empowering the local youth there, working with the advanced technology. But his vision for Hotwax was that he didn't want local youth to go outside from their hometown to find just the livelihood to different places, and then not able to balance their work life and personal development path. So he has done a wonderful job there creating, and it's a big team now, almost 200 to 300 people. And I have been to Hotworks personally many times, interacting with the team there, and they are like a family, like the professional family. It's not a professional place, but it's kind of a family environment there. And Anil ji is taking care of everything from livelihood to the personal growth of his team there. So much impressed by all his work there. And he is a strong advocate of life oriented education, and he strongly believes that skills are what we need, and human values are what we need rather than the degrees. And all the question he is holding is when the world will realize the potential of local economy in integrated growth of communities. So welcome, Anilji. So glad to have you here. And with that, I will give it over to Maitreyi, and she would be um, you know, uh, like co-hosting today. And we are again. I'm saying, Mick, we are missing you today. So welcome, Maitri.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think big shoes to fill today, co-hosting in place of Mick. So hopefully I can do it justice. Yeah, so I think right off the bat, I just wanted to kind of dive in. And Tarun, I think so. My first question is for you. So, you've been doing a lot of amazing things, and um, obviously now there is this when we talk about like the traditional education system, it has some sort of a structure to it, right? It's a very structured approach that we take to education these days. So I just wanted to just ask you from the perspective of a learner, like what do you think about the structure of the education system today? And how do you think it benefits and or harms learners' lives? So obviously it's not all bad. There is some good to it. So there might be some benefit there, but like how do you think that it kind of causes harm or benefits a learner's life?
That's a great question, Maitri. So the way that I think about structure in education is, I think, on two fronts. One is structure of the education, like the educational regime itself. So this refers to rigid curricular structures, rigid, say, like at least in India, class 1 to 12 sequence or 4 years of college and so on. And then there's the other broader, the bigger structures of institutional structures of, say, university itself, rather than, say, earning college credit with a curated, personalized set of courses, for instance. This twin structure of education. Again, to be clear, education comes in many forms, many flavors. So it's
Mm-hmm.
educations, as I see it. How does this benefit or harm the learner? Well, I think firstly, I should begin with the caveat that it's easy for unconventional autodidacts like me to immediately start bashing mainstream education and say, "Hey, everything is wrong with it. Everything is wrong with it. Things have to change." But at the same time, I'd be the first to point out that there's a lot of things good in the mainstream education that
Mm-hmm.
autodidacts like me just take apart and use in new ways. I
Mm-hmm.
tinker around with it. I mean, for instance, consider the one of the most mainstream parts of school, books. I absolutely love books. Great books from all periods and cultures from all around the world. The global canon of great
Mm-hmm.
books is at the core of my education. That's what you see behind me. That, of course, is inspired by Sal Khan, my biggest inspiration, founder of Khan Academy and Schoolhouse. Um, and where does it harm learners? Well, I think it harms learners in a rather obvious sense that it forces them into spaces that they don't necessarily fit in. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent, it's like forcing a polar bear to live in a desert. I mean, and then
Right.
blaming the polar bear, saying, you know what, this polar bear is lazy. They don't want to thrive in desert, or they're pretending, or something of that sort, right? I mean, the fact that a polar bear cannot survive in a desert does not mean the polar bear is an inferior creature. Or the fact that, say, a sloth is not as fast as a cheetah doesn't make it an inferior creature. It is what it is. And it has to find environments that it thrives in. And I'd argue that non-human animals have been more successful at securing the conditions in which they thrive. I mean, look at microbes. They've survived. Microbes have survived. I mean, the fact that they're small, if they were small and inferior, evolution would have rejected it, right? It would have, to use an analogy from Twitter, it would have hashtag cancelled it. I was mentioning this with our professor the other day. Um, so I think the structures of education, um, the structures of education really could. I think where they're harming learners is in this: they're forcing them into environments that learners may not necessarily thrive in. And by environment,
Mm-hmm.
don't just take it in the sense of physical spatial environment, but for instance, I, for instance, struggle a lot to pick my major in college because I have an eclectic range of interests, and finding, I mean, a one size fits all model does not necessarily work. Or I wouldn't even call it a one size fits
Mm-hmm.
all model. It's a one size should supposedly fit all model because it harbors that assumption that it somehow should fit all or will tailor the. I mean, it's like tailoring the body to fit the clothes rather than tailoring clothes to fit the body.
Right. Yeah.
Structures of education are not good. The other one is obvious. I love. I'll start with this, and this is the part. The other one is obvious. I mean, I love learning. I love learning across disciplines, and I do my unconventional autodidacticism even as I go to a mainstream university. However, I recognize that not everyone has the chance to do so. There are so many people that they need to reach.
Right.
I don't think
Mm-hmm.
structured education is reaching as many people as it should reach, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also important to realize that the same education may not benefit everybody. This is something
Right.
that I
Yeah.
often grapple with a lot. I mean, I often think if philosophy is only for those privileged to engage in intellectual pursuits, this is a dilemma that I grapple with a lot. I mean, I think, would someone
Mm-hmm.
who isn't very affluent enough to afford books to go to university be interested in deep philosophical questions? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know the answers. However, I do think that the current structures of education, they don't necessarily meet learners where they are always. To be clear, there are amazing places. There are amazing places like the Khan Lab School, the Khan World School, New Academy, which is a remarkable school. I was looking at their curriculum yesterday, and there are other places like Summit Public Schools and other places that do focus on this learner-centric learning. But these are nice places, but these are more like OSCs in a desert of
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
void of education that doesn't really serve those it wants to serve. So I guess I'll stop there. I'm not well versed enough in sociology to deconstruct structures of education as deeply as I'd
Yeah.
like to.
No, I think that was a very succinct answer. Like you said, it's very easy to completely disregard conventional education or conventional schooling and say that it's bad completely. But I think that's also a very privileged standpoint to take because at the end of the day, however it is a way for a lot of people to kind of come up. Um, Not going into the way that our society is built today, that people need that to come up. That's a different kind of conversation altogether. But yeah, I completely agree with what you said.
Yep.
So
Thank you. And next one is Vijay.
yeah, I think yeah, in that same vein, since we are talking about like the structure of education and like conventional schooling and everything, like my question to you was like you are an educator and you are kind of doing this already with like the Humanist Academy and everything. But I just wanted to ask you like what are some of the things that you love about today's like conventional schooling system or like education system in its current form. So like what are some of the things you love about that? Some of the things that you maybe want to incorporate into your space. And then also what are some of the things that you absolutely you dislike or just that you hate that you think shouldn't be there?
Yeah, thanks for putting this all together and just giving us this opportunity to get together and talk. Yeah, I think similar to what Arun was saying. Can you guys hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
Yes.
awesome. So it's really hard. It's such a broad area, right? So it's very easy to go into our own personal experience and anecdotal kind of experiences and say, well, education's like this. But just to step back for a second, I mean, the way mainstream education looks in India or the way it looks in America, or I mean, there's such a vast difference overall that it's hard to speak on the subject, broadly. And then like in America right now, there's a lot of innovation happening. So there's charter schools and there's private schools and there's micro schools, and there's the Acton Academy Network, which is a network of learner-driven schools. Montessori has been an experiment, over 100 years that's been happening. That's been powerful and proven and effective and stuff. So I think, I don't know if I'm avoiding the question, but I love that there's innovation. And I love that there's, if your question is, what do you love about conventional education? That's a little bit difficult to answer. But if it's, what do you love about the state of education today? I think I love that there's a lot of innovation happening and a lot of things that are shifting. I think Tarun mentioned this, like that are more learner centric, or just shifting to, being more self-paced, being more project-based, being, more Socratic in nature. I think hate is a strong word. I try just not to hate anything.
Yeah, right. I know.
But I definitely feel a little uncomfortable, apprehensive, nervous whenever the authority of an adult is so strong, and the approach becomes, let me try to fill this empty box with this knowledge that I have, instead of recognizing that every child and every human being is infinite inside themselves. And the goal is to just create an environment, and ask questions and allow that journey to, blossom the way a seed. You can't tell a seed to grow. You can't yell at it. You can't scream at it.
Yeah.
You just you need to provide the right environment and then let it grow. So anytime there's movements, there's people, there's schools, parents who just have that philosophy and see human beings and children in it with a sense of wonder, I think that's what I love.
Yeah, I think I didn't think you avoided the question at all. I completely agree with everything you said. Yeah, I think it's
I was just wondering, like, Vijay, like, because you are already into the unconventional teaching path or education path, this question was more from a, and you answered it, you didn't avoid the question, but like, what conventional system has been doing more in India rather than like in US. So it's in a very bad shape, like with all the mugging and rote learning and everything, like pushing everything. So 90% of the learners today are facing those issues. And I think you put it very nicely, that
I get to go to a school every day where I see children, asking questions, being curious, looking at problems and then finding ways to solve them that are relevant to the real world. And then there's chaos, and then there's quiet, and there's just, it's amazing. And it does hurt me to know that, like, maybe 95 or maybe 99, or there's so many children out there just kind of sitting at desks being talked at, and learning or being forced to learn things. I don't know about learning, but having, being forced to, that has very little to do with life. So that's definitely something that is loathsome for me, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, we've talked to a learner and then we've talked to an educator. And now my question sort of goes out to you as a parent, because I think I think everyone has an equal part to play, but definitely parents are kind of where a learner's journey starts. And I just wanted to ask you, I think, especially like, I feel like, especially with younger parents, or like with parents of like my parents' generation, there is this, I hear stories from them about, how their parents were like super chill, and like, they weren't really very concerned, I would say, about their children's future, like very much involved in it. Okay, no, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to do it. Like when my mom tells me stories about her parents, they kind of let her find her own way. And then we look at, the generation after that, and it's completely opposite. We have parents who are very protective about their children, very obsessive about, what they think that would make their children happy and what they think that their children's future should be like. So my question to you is like basically why do you think this has happened? Like why have parents they become so obsessive and so protective about their children about their children's futures?
So I think the answer is multiple things.
Mm,
First of all, today's parents, we can. We have technology. The kids
mm,
have smartphones. The kids can be tracked. I can know where my kids are at any time of the day. I can reach out to them. My mother, when she left to the office, she had no idea where I was, what I was doing. I was running around. They had to accept it and accept that things would be okay because they had no other option. Uh,
mm,
I mean, I also think every generation thinks that the world has gotten worse than the previous generation. Uh,
Very nice.
so I think, I mean, when I was growing up, you knew your neighbors knew you, they would watch out for the kids. They would basically, if someone was doing the wrong thing, they would speak up. Now, in many places, you don't know your neighbors. You barely talk to them. Everyone keeps to themselves. So there is no support, so community support mechanism around.
mm,
So the only ones that are going to care about your kids are you, right? There's no one else you can rely on. Uh,
mm,
I would also think is that, and we'll talk. I think this is a point that I think I at least will touch on. There's a view, or maybe a reality, that the competition is much higher for achievement. I can tell you, when I was applying to college, if I looked at my grades and my SAT scores and stuff like that, I would have not have gotten into any of the schools that I gotten into with those grades at that time, right?
mm,
Right? I mean, nowadays to get into not even an Ivy League, even a good school, if you're not at least 1550 on the SAT, they
Wow.
don't even think of you. And it's like 4.2 GPA, it's all that other stuff, 15 extracurricular activities. So that's giving the angst. And I guess the last point I would say is maybe it's demographic. My mother was one of 6 children. My father was one of 4 children. Current generation of parents have smaller families, 1, 2, maybe 3. And so obviously all of your hopes and dreams are on few number of people. So so what it is that then you sort of put that burden on all of them. So I mean, I think that's the reality of numbers.
Very nice.
mm. Very, very well put. I think in some ways, I think it's amazing to see how hands-on parenting has become these days. But then in other ways, I think it also puts a lot of pressure on the children to perform and to be successful, quote unquote.
Absolutely.
Yep. I think beautifully expressed, Shikhar. I love that,
Mhm.
comparison from the last generation to this generation. Very
Yeah.
nice.
So, Anilji, my next question was for you. I think as an employer and as a job creator, a lot of like the education system is dependent on, right? That is kind of like the measure of success. Or did you get a good job? You know, or were you able to get a job? I think that's one of the things that that's the end goal, right? For all the hoops that you run through today, school, college, everything, like the end goal is that there should be a good job waiting for you at the end of it. So I think I just wanted to ask you, as an employer, since the entire education system is dependent on you to some degree, um, how, like, you fulfill this role of providing a livelihood through employment. So as a job creator, as someone who, is very much one of the most important pillars of this, do you prefer degree or skills?
Maitri, actually, this is an interesting one, actually. Number one, what I prefer. Let me answer that question, then I'll go back to your background on it. So skills or degrees, actually, more important than that is your attitude. It's the attitude of the person who is going out to do something, like maybe it's a job or start your own business or whatever. It's the attitude that matters. If you have the right attitude, then you are going to work on problem and solve the problem. So the next thing is you should have attitude to check out the problems, fall in love with the problems, and then work hard to solve those problems. Now, if you get these few things right, then skills naturally, come to you because you are already in love with the problem, and you dig into it, you dissect it, and you figure out what is it that I need to know to be able to work on this problem and get this solved. At that point, you know what you need to learn. And so in that scenario, if we go with this approach, then there's very little responsibility on the education system. It's more about culture, it's about society, it's about parenting, it's about family, where we bring up our children, and we talk to them about being responsible, being having the right kind of attitude towards the society, towards the people, towards the problems. And the right attitude is it's not about you, it's about others, right? So these are a few things. So I think, in your question, like you said, the employers they are bringing in job opportunities where people going through the education system finally can get a job, right? I think it's too much of expectation that society has set on the employers. In fact, we should take away, as a society, we need to change this attitude. How did we get? It's only in the 20th century, right? In the early 20th century, just because these people who were leading the Industrial Revolution, they needed people who can work in these factories. That's when they created this whole education system. And then over the years, we have definitely evolved it, we changed it, but still the core of it still stays the same. And the biggest problem that we have created for ourselves is this idea that education should train people such that they can find jobs. I think that's the wrong attitude. It's more of what I would say is education should be about helping you become more curious, have more questions, and figure out how to get the answers to those questions. Because that's how I would say we would get most out of the life we have on the earth. And because life on earth is not about how to make it's not about the people working in my company. Their goal should not be to make my dreams come true. It should be their dreams should come true for them. For that, they should be able to dream, right? And they can definitely work with me because my dreams and their dreams align. And that's why we come together and form a team and then work together. So as an employer or as a leader or as an entrepreneur, I could work with the other people. Yes, I will need people in my team, but that's about connecting with the right people who have same ideas or similar goals. And that's why they come together and work on some problem and find a solution and help the society evolve to the next level or solve the problem. The other thing I would say is like Shikhar was saying, that there is this competition and going to the college could be difficult. I already am from a very, very not much popular or big college or anything. But then I say, this is another thing that most of us in our parenting and in our society, we don't get right, or we are not getting it correct, is that there is competition. When in my life, I've seen is there's nearly zero competition. There is no competition at all. Why? Because there are not enough people with the right attitude. If you have the right attitude, then there is no competition. And similarly, going to college, we made a little too much hype of that you need to go to certain college to get certain degrees so you can get certain job. In fact, you don't need to go to college because you don't need to go look out for a job. You could actually go live your dream, and in that process, you might create jobs for others. So I think we need to look at things in a very different way, and we can learn a lot from the society that was in 19th century or 18th century or 17th century. And I think we can learn from the mistakes of our society in 20th century. That's how I see the current situation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of not just our education system, but the way our society is structured today needs to be reconsidered and kind of torn down and rebuilt in a different way. I think, I mean, a lot of it comes from like this Western concept of, you have to work and hustle culture, so to speak, in capitalism. And I think a lot of indigenous cultures, like Hindu culture, Vedic culture, like it was about, you're on this earth to be and to learn about yourself. And in the process, maybe along the way, you can help other people out. And that's like you're here to enjoy life and like to be the best version of yourself that you can be, and everything else comes secondary. And now it's kind of the other way around.
Exactly.
Yeah, offering your gifts for the society, and enjoying your life at the same time. It was livelihood is so, as like in our Vedic culture, as Maitri said, uh, it is an important part of your life, but we have made it the most important part of our life, and that way we are, I think, out of balance between material, spiritual, and emotional life. And very nicely put, Anilji. Really appreciate. Yeah.
Right. So I think circling back to where we started on, we've kind of talked a lot about I think Shikhar mentioned it, Anilji mentioned it, like competition. And I mean, some of it is very true. Like we live in a very competitive environment these days, what one calls the rat race. And I think especially like in India, learning or conventional schooling is it's a very competitive environment, right? Learners are constantly pitted against one another. It's not about improving yourself. It's more about, um, getting more marks than the other person or scoring better than everyone else in the class. So I just wanted to ask, I mean, and which is, I mean, in its own way, I'm not saying good or bad, but competition is a good motivator in some ways. I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing. We won't get into that. But if you look at self-learning, that's largely a very non-competitive environment, right? You're not competing with other people. If you are competing with someone, that's yourself. But in such an environment, which is not very competitive, are discipline and motivation needed? And if they are, in what ways? Like, and personally for you, how do you keep yourself how do you keep yourself growing, and how do you kind of keep yourself, constantly learning? What is it that kind of drives you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Maitri. So there's a lot to unpack over there. So firstly, I think self-learning isn't all that non-competitive. It depends on the kind of self-learning, I should say. I mean, my autodidacticism is non-competitive. I'm anything but a competitive person. However, I've certainly seen forms of self-learning that can be very competitive, sometimes detrimentally so for the learner or for other people around. Obvious form that this competition in self-learning, it could take the form of, I have to get into this university, I have to get into that, like the number one ranked university, I have to get there, and seeing the admissions process is this game where you second guess what is in the what is in the recruiter's mind, and say exactly what they want to hear. And I mean, I think Shikhar mentioned this in his response. Have these like 25 extracurriculars, this extracurricular to show my altruistic spirit, this extracurricular this one to show my leadership, this one to show, I don't know, intelligence or whatever. Um, so self-learning can be competitive. And what I would say is, I find competition to not be a motivator for me. It wrecks my work in how my work affects other people, I think, for me. However, I'll not prevent another learner from using competition as a motivator if it motivates them. Um, Self-learner, especially. Notice I'm not even talking about learners in mainstream schools, but uh, and the other aspect here is, I think, the self-learner itself. The self-learner, too often we tend to think of self-learners as autodidacts, homeschoolers. They are self-learners, yes, but it's also possible to be a self-directed learner who decides that going to a mainstream university is the best possible choice for you, where they're taking university courses, they're earning a mainstream degree, but they're in the driver's seat. I think self-learning is about putting the learner in the driver's seat, not necessarily whether you're homeschooled or
Mm-hmm.
gone to, say, a public school. Now, with that,
Mm-hmm.
discipline and motivation, are they needed? Well, firstly, to all those listening, all those viewing this episode, I'd encourage you to check out the first episode. I actually like your response to this, Maitri. In the first episode, I was listening to that one. You talk about how discipline and motivation are useful if they I wouldn't give discipline such a bad rap. I actually think discipline is essential to learning, but I'm very specific about what kind of discipline I mean. Discipline, as I see it, is not waking up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or say studying for the same number of hours every day or whatever. It's clarity on that. Actually making progress on things that matter most to you in your own way. I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
discipline is, to
Mm-hmm.
me, at least. So to one learner, discipline may well be to, say, meditate religiously every morning, like I do, um, and to, say, only study. Another discipline may well be learning in having no schedule at all, right? I mean, that's okay. That may be that person's discipline, I think. Discipline doesn't have to look like orderliness and conformity to mainstream, I think. That's what I point. So yes, discipline
Mm-hmm.
is valuable in learning. Discipline is very personalized, just like learning, I think. Motivation. Now, this is the tricky part. Now, this is a puzzle that I've struggled with a lot, and this is something I get asked a lot about in my tutoring on Schoolhouse.world. I do these ask Tarun anythings on education and autodidacticism, and motivation. The way that I see it is, I see it almost as a feeling that comes and goes sometimes. I mean, I find that sometimes I'm super motivated to learn, but when I start learning it, when I get into the proverbial intellectual woods, so to speak, I sometimes find that the motivation that I initially had to spark is, it's not there, but still I can still make progress if I have the discipline to follow through. So I think motivation and discipline are like these complementary strands where discipline can help you follow through on things that matter most to you, even when you're not motivated, I think. At least
Mm-hmm.
I do think that motivation is best when it's not imposed, like you pointed out in your response on the first episode. And I do think that motivation, that there are ways of, I think being a self-directed learner means that you can turn even opportunities that may feel like they're imposed into something self-directed. I mean, this is especially valuable, I think, in college. It's easy to feel like, oh, I have this. Think of it as a way to improve your writing. Think of it as a way to improve your thinking. I mean, I see writing as a process of discovery, not as expression. That's an unpopular opinion I hold, but I see writing as a way to discover what I think. I mean, I don't know what I think until I've written down. And that process of writing down, I make it an enjoyable process where I blur the distinction between the writer,
Arun,
me, and the
your
written,
voice is
the written
breaking.
word. Um, so I'd say discipline and motivation for self-learners. Yes.
Yeah, I think your voice is like breaking out there for
So
a bit, but
we can
I'm
have
afraid I couldn't
Vijay.
hear you.
And you probably you have to fix your video. Yeah. But next question is for
Yeah,
Vijay. So yeah.
sure.
yeah, no, but I think you brought up very valid points there.
Yeah,
I
no
personally
worries.
never like, yeah, for me, it was very
I'm done.
interesting, the thing you pointed out about, discipline being something that it can look different for different people. And I think that was something that for me really stood out, in what you said, Tarun. Um, for Vijay, right, the question I have is, and I mean, honestly, this feels like a very redundant question because I think this is something we're already doing. So maybe I can rephrase the question in the way to be like, so you are someone who has designed their own learning space. You're doing like whatever I've heard from I think you're doing amazing things at the Humanist Academy. And I just want to say that, like, just wanted to ask you, like, that process of kind of designing your own learning space, what was the thought that went into it? Like, what were some things that, were kind of like you knew from the get-go that, okay, these are the things that need to be there for this learning space or for this learning environment to be a good learning environment for children. So how did you go about designing that?
I just want to take like a quick, I got to say the amazing
Mm-hmm.
things that are happening are all because of the learners. Like it's very
Mm-hmm.
little of me. If anything, when I involve myself, I end up screwing things up. And also, I just want to clarify, like for anybody that watches this, that even designing it wasn't necessarily like my thing. Like the
Mm-hmm.
Acton model, Jeff and Laura Sandifer in Austin. I mean, this is a network of schools. When we opened the Humanist Academy, we were the first Acton Academy in Dallas. There were 7 Actons all over the world. This was back in 2016, 2015-ish, like January 2016. There's over 300 schools now, just in 8 years, and people are recognizing the power of this. So, and your question was, what are, I guess, some of the core aspects of it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a quick story. So I used to teach in Chicago high school history, and I taught a little bit of math. And then I was an assistant principal and a principal of a school. And in the back of my mind, my brother was actually the one who was like, hey, we got to start a school one day. And he's a doctor and he's the favorite child, right? Because I went to teaching. So, you know, but I actually never thought like I would be like doing something like this. And I remember it was November 28th, 2015, when I saw this video about Acton Academy, and it had self-paced learning, it had project-based learning, all those things that I mentioned, everything that I've dreamed of in a school. I saw it come together, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you don't have to have, and Khan Academy is actually a big part of it, shout out to Tarun and Sal Khan, obviously, but with technology now, you don't have to have, like all these textbooks and this trained teacher or whatever. The content and everything is at your fingertips. So to me, the core, it actually goes back to something Anilji said. It's about being curious, and it's about building a culture. So at our school and in Acton schools and stuff like that, you spend 3-4 weeks asking the learners, what's their vision of a school in the beginning, and what should this place look like? And then what type of promises do you need to give to each other? So when you walk through these doors, and you're a part of this environment, you're going to live up to that. You're going to create that together. And then you have a big contract ceremony, and you make it real, and they have town hall meetings. They discuss problems. They have conflict resolution processes. This is done without adults. Like, we don't try to go in and rescue them for anything. We want them to figure these things out. So they build resilience. They build that confidence. They go through struggle, and they can kind of really handle their problems. And then, we do project things in the afternoon. We do core skills a couple hours in the mornings where they're learning their math and their languages and stuff like that. It's really just about they go live on a farm for a week and they just wake up at 5 a.m. and do chores. They plan trips that they have to pay for. And they're starting their own businesses. They're designing, their own kind of spaces for education. So it's a lot of fun. And I think that's kind of just how it should be. That was a little convoluted. Like there's a lot that's in there, and I know it's a few minutes, but hopefully that gave you put a little, major mouth water a little bit, hopefully.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So Shikhar, my next question is for you. I think I'm just gonna skip the second question, because I feel like we already touched up on that one in your answer to the previous one. So good going there. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of wrap things up by asking, I think we give a lot of thought into what kind of individual we want to give to the world. So I want to ask you, like, personally for you, what is the kind of child that you envision or that you want to give to the world? And what role do you see yourself playing in their learning journey?
So I think what I'm going to say is probably nothing new from every parent. We want our children to be healthy and happy and secure. So this is hardly any type of something new. I mean, as my role as a parent, as I see it, is to give them the environment and help to any way I can to ease the first few steps of that journey. Once their journey is started, they're on their own. I mean, I tell my kids, sort of half jokingly, but actually very seriously, my job is to sort of get you on the path, get you through college or whatever you want to do so that you're ready to start the world and sort of make your own way. But don't count on me for money. Don't count on an inheritance from me or anything like that. I tell my wife, we're going to die poor, so don't expect anything from us. You have to make your own way. Obviously, we will be there for you. We are parents. That's not there. But what we want our children to do is that we want them to find their own path. And obviously, we want them to make the world a better place. And in whatever big or small way they do it, but at the utmost, they should be happy and content with whatever path they choose.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that was a very, very beautiful answer to that question.
Yeah.
So Anilji, I think we talked a lot about what kind of skills and like what attitude is missing from current graduates and current learners today that come to work for you or come into the job market. So I also want to ask, and we kind of touched up on this before also when you mentioned how like there's a lot of like undue pressure that is put on the employers to sort of, or these expectations that are set to provide a livelihood to people who come out of the system. But I also want to ask you, like, what support would you say that the other three pillars, so like educators, parents, learners, how can these three other pillars sort of support you to help create a conducive environment to offer a more secured livelihood to people or to more people? So what is it that you think that learners can do better? What is it that you think that educators or the education system can do better? And what is it that you think that parents can do to sort of help you help more people secure a livelihood?
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I think what we've done is unknowingly we created unnecessary competition or a feeling of insecurity, or that when actually the reality is on this earth we have abundance. Really, in my life I have experienced it so many times. There's like abundant resources out there. Don't be insecure. There is no reason to be insecure at all. There is no competition. So don't be worried. The number one thing is this: getting this idea in our head is very important. There's this other topic that comes up, is like, what do you want to unlearn? So this is what you want to really unlearn, is that there is competition. No, there is no competition. Just unlearn that. There is limited resources. No, there is unlimited resources. Whatever you want, we can get. So, but these things, it's hard. The society should actually, get out of this mindset. We should not tell our kids, you should work hard, or, you need to go work hard so you can get into this college, or if you don't do this much, this thing, then you will not make enough money and you will find it difficult, your life will be difficult. None of that is real. All that is just made up. We created all that made up demand, or the competition. It's all made up. So what we need our society to do is just get out of this mindset. Don't, push this thing into your children's mind. Don't tell them any of that. Doesn't really matter at all. If they can feel abundance in their own emotions, if they can, love what they are doing, then no matter what happens, they will achieve whatever they want to achieve. And like, from your spiritual gurus, they always tell us, but we think that, oh, this is all unreal. The reality is that we have to work hard. No. So please, as a society, we all need to come together and help each other to believe and experience the fact that there is abundance out there. There is no competition, because no two people are same. No two people's dreams are same, because they are all different. That is the reason why there is abundance and there is no competition.
Great. I think it's a time for a rapid fire, and we are already passing our time, but rapid fire is always a very fun round to, I would request everyone to stick either one sentence or one word for that, and anyone can go in any, like any sequence. Whoever is ready, they can raise and they can answer. So first rapid fire, and it's the very interesting round. In one sentence or one word, you all need to tell us what do we want to start, stop, and continue in current conventional education system. So, yep.
So I'll start, and I'm going to answer very prosaic.
I'd like to.
One thing I will say we should start is make financial literacy mandatory, because while money can't buy happiness, lack of money can definitely lead to unhappiness.
Very nicely put. Yep. Who wants to go next?
I'll just say real quick, more Socratic conversations, dialogue, less judgment and filling empty vessels, trying to fill empty vessels, more projects, more entrepreneurship. And, someone asked after Anil talked, like, how do you create jobs or more jobs or something like that? It's really just, if they know how to have an idea and then put it out in their world and have the entrepreneurial skills, they can do anything. And so to remove that fear that he's been talking about, I think I'm 100% on board with that. So
wonderful. Tarun or Anilji, anyone wants to?
So I think I'd like to start in education. Alternative ways of mastery. I think I'd like to make alternative ways of proving autodidactic mastery more mainstream. I mean, I'm glad that employers like Anilji do recognize skills over degrees. However, it's also true that not all employers do that just yet. I'd like to make that more mainstream.
Great. Anilji?
I think, we need to bring more the idea of ownership into people, instead of right now the current education system puts responsibility on others, and we need to change that. People, as a part of the education system, they should take the ownership of, I need to learn. I'm responsible for my own learning. I am responsible for creating job for myself and things like that.
Very nice. Great. Second question is one thing you have unlearned or want to unlearn in your personal life.
Well, I'll go first.
I'd like to go first. The one
Oh, go ahead.
thing that I've unlearned is, all right. So, well, the fact that I've unlearned the fact that my test scores and rankings on exams and the college I go to matters a lot. No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter as much as I thought it did long ago, eons ago.
Good.
That's what I've unlearned.
I think, we fall in love with the product or whatever we have, when in fact we should not do that, and instead we should really love the problems that we come across. And I think that's something we really need to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I'm going to go with, I'm trying to unlearn, and I hope I'm working on it, fix the mindset. So if you're familiar with Carol Dweck's work, learning to have a growth mindset and just more effort, you can learn anything.
Wonderful. Shikhar.
I would probably say one thing I want to unlearn is constantly staring at a problem will get you to the answer. Sometimes you just have to wait, you have to take a break, and it'll come.
Nice. Yeah. Yep. Great.
Yeah, sleep on the idea is important, right? Yeah, just have that problem and then just go to bed. In the morning you have the solution.
Yep. And for personally myself, I wanted to unlearn myself, like be productive all the time. I had a hard time after I left my corporate career to be at home and constantly forcing people to do something all the time, so that is, I have unlearned for last 8 years. Okay, the third question is, if you were to write a book, what would the title be?
Unleash their potential. Or your potential, maybe like our potential. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Who wants to go next? Shikhar?
Yeah. So the joy of doing nothing.
I love you. I love it. Anilji.
Well, really, it's fall in love, basically.
Fall in love of what?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. If you love, then everything else will come.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
The problem with today in our society, the problem is that we don't even love ourselves enough.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Tarun?
So I haven't really decided on a book title just yet, but I'd probably call my book Why I'm Not a Marxist. Marksist, I should clarify. It has nothing to do with the thinker Karl Marx. Something like how not to be a Marxist, perhaps.
Great. Okay. Top 3 must-have life skills in just one word, like 3 skills. Top 3 must-have life skills.
I'll start. I'll give one. Ability to communicate, both in written and presentation form.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And other 2?
I'll say financial again. I go back to that. And interpersonal. At least with my kids, they're very social media aware, but they're extremely antisocial. Get them to try to talk to each other or do something in real time. It's sort of like, as we say in Hindi, tanda bukar hota, right? It's like they don't know what to do.
I think that's true mostly for this generation, Shikhar. So I think, they need to understand that this is a must-have life skill, interpersonal.
Just telling them to don't text, get on the phone is a problem.
I'll go with 3 real quick. Grit, curiosity, And then, like Shrikar said, like collaborative, interpersonal communication. I think it all falls under that. Like, don't hide behind a screen and complain about someone. Go to their face, talk to them as a human being, and try to, So those three: grit, curiosity, communication / collaboration.
Yeah. Wonderful. Anilji?
Yeah, for me, it's like love the problem. Number one is love the problem, then take the ownership. And third one, all other, like, Shikhar said, and then Vijay said, is storytelling. You need to have a good communication skill and be able to, tell the story, basically, yeah.
Yep. Tarun?
All right. So, top 3 life skills are: one, autodidacticism, the ability to learn anything for yourself. The second one is working with people you profoundly disagree with without losing your cool. And the third one is compassion.
Wonderful. Love it. Love all those three, Great. Meaning of success and meaning of happiness, separate, but in one word. Meaning of success in one word and meaning of happiness in one word.
I'll go with success. So there's people that say like success is like achieving a goal. There's people that say, success is being happy. But I think it's a little deeper. I think it's a spiritual thing. It has to do with fulfillment, in a deeper sense, finding a higher purpose that you're living for. So to me, and then happiness falls hand in hand with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Being happy is being successful. I'm missing you, Mick. Yeah.
So success, I would go with Vijay. I was going to say contentment. So contentment, fulfillment falls in the same sort of together. Happiness, I would use the word freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You are free to pursue whatever path you want to go, and that will lead you to your happy path.
Yes. Great. Anilji?
Yeah, it's like, you want to be able to have a capability to be able to dream. And if you have a dream, then success and happiness are connected. Like, you live your dream, that's your success, and definitely the experiences are your happiness.
Yep. Tarun?
Well, success for me is clarity, and happiness is smile and truth. The result of a smile. I think the easiest way to be happy.
Nice. Okay, the last question, common question for everyone is, what common practice or belief as a collective community we need to unlearn?
I think teaching. I'm going to just go crazy on this.
I'd like to go first. Yeah.
Go ahead,
so
Tarun, go ahead.
Can you?
Vijay?
Yeah.
Continue. Yeah, continue.
So we need to unlearn
Sure.
teaching.
Thanks, Vijay. So can you all hear me?
Huh.
All right. So
Yeah, go ahead. Finish, Tarun. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tarun.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a lag.
Yeah.
I have lag. Yeah, that's true. So I was saying that we need to collectively unlearn that autodidacts and self-learners are somehow rebels against the mainstream school system. They're not rebels; they're complements to it. Yeah, they're just another. They're probably not your usual learner, but I think autodidacts are not like rebels, people against school. And the other belief that I think we need to unlearn collectively is obsession with grades. I think obsession with grades. That's it. Using grades as the marker of future potential. Grades that I got maybe 4 or 5 years ago is what I'm capable of doing in the future. No, we need to unlearn that. Grades are very limited. Useful, but they're very limited in perspective.
Great. Yep. Vijay?
Yeah, I would agree. Tests, grades, all that. And then, I was going to say teaching. It just came to my head like this didactic lecture-based style where you regurgitate and then you somehow learn. Like teaching and learning are very different things. And so if we can just get rid of that part and just put out, like Anil's been talking about this forever, put out problems and let them fall in love with them and just kind of learn through that process.
Wonderful. Anilji?
Yeah, no, I agree with Vijay. It's like, this one thing I always think about is like we used to have back in the day, and at least, when I went to school, I don't know how much it is today. I doubt there is any, is having respect or what we call shraddha in Hindi for your teacher. So that's something, I think is not as much, it doesn't exist much, but like, it used to be until we were going to school, but like before that, definitely it was there a lot. So having that, that I don't know the exact English word for it, but like shraddha in your guru and bhakti and shraddha, these two things are really something we need to go for and unlearn the current way where we hold teacher responsible for training students on something. We need to get out of that system.
Yep. Shikhar?
I'll go with Tarun. He said it best. Marxism.
Yes. Great. Okay, so now I'm having one last question for each one of you, separate for the role you have been on the panel. And for Tarun, what is your favorite time pass?
My favorite time pass is studying, learning, studying. Simple.
Nice. You are a true learner then. Okay. For Shikhar, one habit your children, parenting habit, I would say, your children hate most about your parenting.
I constantly tell them to plan their time, right? Just at least, it doesn't have to be work, it doesn't have to be studying, but don't just wake up at 12 p.m. and then don't do nothing and watch YouTube videos or something. Plan your time and just stick to a schedule.
Yep. Yep. I think many parents would go with you on that one.
So maybe, Shikhar, we should bring in Scrum methodology in the day-to-day life, right?
Yep.
We could bring it in, but no one will listen to the Scrum Master here, so I know that. So.
Yep.
They'll all claim to be agile.
Yeah. Even though as a mother, like I've been raising these two self-learner kids, but somehow we are so much conditioned to ask them, just plan and like work in an organized manner. And so those things, I think that is another unlearning for me, that they know best where, like definitely planning helps, but if you are not a person who would plan anything, it's not going to harm you in a bigger picture. So
All I'll say to that is everyone's methods of organization look different. What looks like chaos to you might be organized for me. So
Or it may be chaos.
Yep. But anyway, it's our generation's problem, Shikhar. Anyway, for Vijay, one thing you absolutely hate but still have to do even in your unconventional schooling as an educator, uh, which one thing you can't get rid of into the new
Yeah.
thing.
I struggle with this a lot because so I think probably like marks or any type of grade or evaluating things. Like I think that most people know if you can self-evaluate, but you facilitate that process through the right questions, then they can. So for me to deliver judgment on somebody, I hate that part.
Yeah, I think in last many episodes and even before that, we have been talking to educators, and that is the first and foremost thing which educators hate, but they still have to do it in some or the other form. So totally, I think you are there. For Anilji, one absolutely must have skill which you can't compromise on when you hire your team or someone in your team.
It's the ownership, taking the ownership. That's a really important skill that I expect person to have. Everything else will come if you take ownership for the top. Yeah.
Great. It was a great session. And I was, thinking that probably we should be able to finish that in 60 minutes. But we are over like almost 75 minutes, but it was great to have all of you. And Maitri, you wanted to add anything?
It's great to be here. I hope I could do Mick proud.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
hope I was adequate enough
No,
in
no.
his absence.
No, you were great too, and Mick loves you, so he would actually appreciate
I
you,
know,
you
yeah.
know. But thanks a lot again, everyone, and thanks for taking your time out, giving so valuable inputs and expressing your views in a beautiful, way. And hopefully, we should be able to. We are striving for that. We should be able to create this moment where all four pillars are thinking about the education system and not only the educators or the policy makers, so we want everyone to have play a equal part in keeping learners in the front, and hopefully majority of the learners should be able to see that in their life, this kind of new education path soon in the entire world. So with that, thanks again. Anyone wanted to add anything? They are open. It's we can. Yeah.
It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank
It
you.
was definitely a privilege. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot again. Yeah. Good night. Have a good
Good
day,
night.
everyone in India, Bharat, and I'll see you
Yeah,
soon.
I really enjoyed.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.